So please be seated.
Thank you very much. And I want to express my appreciation to the leadership of GNAT and accompanied by my own uncle. I call him Uncle Kwame Pieni. You call him father, I call him uncle. And then my chief and friend, Chief Andani, we were in school together. I was 1 year ahead of him in secondary school. And we've been friends since our schooling days. And to also welcome the Swedish Ghana Medical Center. I was wondering what the connection was when they were introducing GNAT and then they said SGMC, Sweden Ghana Medical Center. So I said, but what can be the relationship between the two? It turns out that GNAT has acquired the SGMC. Myself, together with President Kufuor, were the ones who commissioned the Swedish Ghana Medical Center. And so I'm happy that GNAT has taken it over, and it's an indigenous project now. Let me thank you for this call and to say how much we appreciate the congratulations you have just passed. We assumed it, so this is a bonus to come physically and extend your congratulations for our victory in the elections last year. We took over, confronted with several issues, but we're under no illusion what the problems of Ghana were. And so we came prepared to make the sacrifices to tackle any challenges that we were facing. One of the major issues was the issue of democracy and governance. We've been practicing this democracy since 1992. And in 1992, when we adopted the Constitution, there was a lot of excitement. There was people were happy that finally we were leaving the turbulence of unconstitutional rule and coming into a democracy. And we all believe that the dividends of democracy will see transformation in our lives and prosperity. Several years on, if you looked at most of the opinion polls that were run, especially Afrobarometer, it was clear from those polls that the confidence of our people in our governance and democracy was waning. And indeed, in one of the surveys they did, there was a very good, significant majority of people, up from previously, who were prepared to go back to military dictatorship as a preferred option to democratic governance. And so during the campaign, one of the things I said was that this probably is our last opportunity to restore the faith of our people in democratic governance, and that if we don't get it right this time, I'm sure that something untoward could happen, either civil unrest, and civil unrest is even worse than a military coup, because when the people lose faith and they decide to make the country ungovernable, it can be a worse option. And so we came with no illusions what the people of Ghana wanted us to do. And we have started doing that to restore confidence in our governance and democracy. And that's why I set up the National Constitutional Review Committee to look at the 1992 Constitution again and bring all the documents from Professor Mills's committee, the Fiajo committee, and then the Chairman Sabonsu one, which President Nana Akufo-Addo put together, including the white paper that was issued on the Fiajo committee and the recommendations of the Constitutional Review Implementation Committee, to bring all together and do one more validation to see what our people expect to see in their constitution in order that it becomes a living document for us. There were many areas of our national lives that needed a reset, including the education sector. And so we set up the National Education Review Conference to make sure that they consult generally all the stakeholders, including teacher groups, to find out what would lead to quality outcomes for our students, especially in the 21st century, and how they can be upskilled to enter the world of work. I'm happy to say that the review committee presented their report about a week ago, and we're studying it, and together we will work with stakeholders like you to implement the program. We also did a National Economic Dialogue, whose report was also presented to me last week. But even before the report was presented, some of the recommendations that had come out were incorporated into the budget that was presented in March. And one of the main things was for a call for fiscal discipline. In the past, fiscal indiscipline has led to throwing the macro economy out of kilter, and created macroeconomic instability, depreciating currency and all that. And it affects all of us because it affects our quality and standard of life. A better performing macroeconomic environment gives investors and business people more predictability, and so they're able to plan better. And an appreciating currency, a strong, stable currency, also improves our earnings, because if I was earning 5,000 CDs and CD was going for 16 CDs to $1, it means I'm earning about $300 and something. But currently with the CD at 10.3, 10.5, it means that the same 5,000 CDs, I'm earning almost $500, about $480 or something like that. And so it is in our interest that the macroeconomy is stable and that our currency is stable and that our economy is growing and creating prosperity for our people. The first quarter GDP results have come, and they've come in at about 5.4%, which shows that the economy is returning to a path of growth, and it should be a good sign for us. If at the end of the year we end at above 5% growth, then it means that the economy has started is expanding instead of growing negatively. And so we'll continue to pay attention to that in order that we're able to create stability for every sector, and we're able to have more prosperity for our people. But to talk about education particularly, we are partners in education, and I want to thank GNAT for everything it's doing. It's one of the biggest stakeholders in the education sector, one of the biggest teacher union, indeed the father of all teacher unions, because growing up I knew GNAT. It was later that other spin-off unions began to come. So GNAT is the grandfather of all teacher unions, and I'm happy that you are the first that I'm meeting since we moved into this office. We know that a happy, well-motivated teacher leads to positive outcomes, learning outcomes for our children. And so a happy teacher is a happy child or a happy student. And so we'll continue to work closely with you to make sure that we're able to improve the conditions of service of teachers, so that teachers are treated with respect, and everybody knows that our teachers are the ones who create the foundation that makes us who we become in future. So I'm happy to welcome you, and then to reiterate what Haruna said, that we have passed a directive that every school that is being built at the basic level must come with accompanying accommodation for teachers. And so instead of just building a 6-classroom block, there must be teachers' quarters attached to the classroom block, so that the teachers teaching there can have accommodation. But that is one angle of it. The other that we spoke about before the election was that we wanted to collaborate with funds like the Teachers Fund, so that governments can also make a counterpart funding and add it to what the teachers have. And then you can have your members apply for housing. We'll sit with you, do the designs together, make them, in Ghana today when you say affordable housing, it ends up being, more for the wealthy than for the poor. And so I call it low-cost housing. Achampo used to call it low-cost housing, and they built so many of them all across the length and breadth of this country. So if we can make provision in the budget for a fund that will be a counterpart fund to the Teachers Fund, then teachers can apply to own their own homes. And so we would go in and build it for them. And if they have a working life of, say, 15 to 20 years, it is possible to deduct, monthly from their salaries, so that by the time they are ready to go on retirement, they own the house and they don't have to go. They don't have to go and quarrel with their families about whose grandmother's room was this. It was my grandmother who built this room and all that. We believe that they should be able to retire in dignity. And so it's something that the Minister of Education will take up with you, so that we design it, and then maybe from beginning of 2026, when we come for your big meeting, we should be able to announce something big for teachers to celebrate about. With regards to pensions, I'll be meeting the TUC and organized labor sometime later. During the May Day, there were issues that were raised still about, even with the restructured pensions, there are all kinds of difficulties that I can see that NAT, you are very happy with how your things are going, but several other unions are not too happy. And so I was saying that we can do a review conference. It's several years since we brought the pension reform. I think it's time for us to do a review and see what is working well and what is not working well, so that we can make adjustments and let everybody feel happy about it. And then also, with regards to the review, when the report was presented to me, there was one of the issues that came up about decentralization, and I think that that is the way to go. So we'll be engaging you on the Education Forum report, but one of the highlights that I picked up was how to decentralize so that we have better supervision at the district level and we have better quality outcomes, because I think that it's easier for the education service to supervise and monitor schools at the district level than for us to try and do it from the center. And so that's one of the issues we'll be taking up with you. And then also issues to do with community and PTA participation in the management of schools. The trend everywhere in the world is to give communities a say in how their schools are run. And that's why I felt very scandalized when PTAs were virtually shoved aside and not allowed to be a part of the running of our schools, especially at the secondary level. And so I believe that PTA participation must be fully restored, so that they work with teachers and the administration of the schools to make sure that the schools are run properly and that our children are getting a good outcome in terms of teaching and learning. And so that said, the only other thing I can do is to congratulate you on the acquisition of the Sweden-Ghana Medical Center. Now that we know you own it, we'll collaborate with you and see how we can make it a center of excellence, not only for teachers, but for everybody who needs the care that it offers. Because of our changing lifestyles, non-communicable diseases have become a major problem, and that's why government is trying to bring relief through the Ghana Medical Trust Fund. I believe that the Ghana Medical Trust Fund fits in nicely with the Swedish Ghana Medical Center, and so that people who have cancers and need, some support from the medical center can also have another fund where they're able to cover some of the costs for these expensive treatments. The treatment and diagnosis of cancers and, cardiovascular diseases and things can be very expensive. And so I think that there's a room for collaboration between your center and the Ghana Medical Trust in terms of treatment of cancers and diagnosis of cancers. I'm proud that NAT acquired Aviance during our time in government. I know Professor Mills was one of the key promoters and encouraging NAT to acquire the shares in Aviance at the time that the foreign investors were going out. And I'm happy to know that you are still a majority shareholder in Aviance. I agree with you that there are some things where we have the capacity to do ourselves. And so it's not a rocket science to bring foreign companies to come and run ground handling in our country when we have the capacity to be able to do so. So I want to encourage NAT to continue with your shareholding in Aviance. Maybe one day you own the whole of Aviance and have a monopoly of, ground handling at our airports. And of course, with all your other investments, I just feel proud that you've been able to grow your association in terms of all these investments. It gives stability to the association, and it makes it possible for you to provide better opportunities and service to your members. So congratulations once again, and I thank you very much for this visit. Thank you.